the show.
Hey, guys, Graham and Chris back here with you again. Man, what a crazy week of baseball it has been. I feel like we're saying it every week, but we get guys blowing out their knees. We get guys who don't know they're supposed to start on the mound the next day. A little bit of craziness on the diamond today, a 23-5 drubbing of the New York Mets, who we're going to get to here in just a little bit, plus, of course, our second defender or backstop of the week, and also we will go behind the mask. To put the ball in play, let's say hello to my friend Chris Furrier over in Arizona. What's up, my brother? You are the light is at the end of your tunnel for school. Just a couple of days left, and then you are free of the college life for now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically done at this point. I turned all my final papers in. The only thing I really have left to do is I have a final to study for, but that's not until next Friday, so I'm not stressing on it too hard right now. So I've been taking the last couple days, well, today really, that I've been done with my schoolwork to catch up on all the other things that I can't do while I'm in school, which consists entirely of playing MLB The Show 2017. Basically,
shout out to MLB The Show.
Bleed.
Shout out to MLB The Show 17. Shout out.
Basically, until my eyes bleed. So I'm having a lot of fun, and you know my season's going great. Some of these real seasons, though, well, they're over, right?
I mean, well, but between player seasons and we said a couple of weeks ago some team seasons, it's hard to tell what really is going on. And I mean, let's just get right down to it. And Adam Eaton is well, I mean, tore his ACL, tore his meniscus. The injury looked gruesome. It was awful to watch. Coming into first base, just collapsed. And it was
one of those
confirmed of an ACL tear.
One of those things where he kind of lunged to make first base, and you hope when he goes down maybe that's just a hamstring or a groin. But yeah, no, absolutely the worst thing that could possibly happen in that situation did. Had a little bit of mercy.
I mean, a lot of odd injuries, a lot of gruesome injuries happen at first between the stretch. You had, I think 2 or 3 seasons ago, actually it might have been longer, actually it might have been 4 years ago, Tim Hudson gets his ankle stepped on and snapped by Eric Young Jr., and I think actually right after that, that's when Huddy went to the Giants. Well, actually it was probably in 13 or 12 because I think he went to the Giants that next year and won the World Series in 2014. If I remember correctly. So, yeah, it would have been about 4 seasons ago. And then Eric Young Jr. fell absolutely horrific. But, you know, it's we've seen some crazy stuff. And, I mean, just how bad this is for the Nationals. They give up a trove of young talent to the White Sox to go out and get this guy, right? You know, you struck out on all your closers. There was talk about maybe trying to get Andrew McCutchen. That didn't work. Of course, we discussed that last week. And then the guy who was really kind of supposed to be, you know, your prized piece in the outfield, along with Bryce Harper, and a guy you're hoping kind of helps bring some cohesion to that veteran unit with Jason Worth out there, goes down. I mean, he played 23 games, was hitting .297, slugging .462. You know, he'd only hit 2 homers. He's not a homer guy, though. His highest total is 14. That's in the last 2 years, respectively. But he'd driven in 13. He'd snagged a couple, 3 bags. And the most impressive, as we always say, is the walk ratio. Walk and strikeout, 18 Ks to 14 walks. So, you know, a guy who was definitely getting on base. His on base was almost 100 points higher than his average. So, Chris, what does this mean? And I hate to keep on being that guy who just every week it's, well, this team's done and this team's done. But I think later in the show we're going to be able to prove the Nationals probably aren't done. But a 6 to 9 month recovery, they're not going to see Adam Eaton in the outfield for the rest of the year, which probably makes Trey Turner kind of cringe, because that was the beauty of Eaton coming in, as Turner went to the infield. Now does Turner perhaps have to go back out to center field to play again in an area where he isn't, that's not his first love.
Right. This is going to hurt defensively, right? Adam Eaton last year, like we've said, Adam Eaton's not really the power guy. He hits a lot of singles, a lot of doubles. He's pretty quick on the base paths, but he had a 6.2 WAR last season 10th in the American League, and it was definitely not because of what he did in the batter's box. It was absolutely attributed to his defensive right field. He's a strong defensive right fielder, and this is a gut punch because, I mean, this is a guy that Mike Rizzo went out and got, gave up Lucas Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez, and Dane Dunning to get, who are top pitching prospects in baseball, gave those guys up to get Adam Eaton, and Adam Eaton's never been an all-star. He's not the top sort of, big name player you expect through a trade like this, but at the same time, he's strong defensively, and that's where it's going to hurt. Now, this is not going to hurt the high-powered offense of the Nationals. Ryan Zimmerman, Bryce Harper, and Daniel Murphy are still going to hit home runs. They're still going to knock in RBI. They're still going to do all the things that they've been doing to make this team the number one team in the East. But, like you said, when you got a guy like Trey Turner who doesn't want to play in right field, this is going to be a bad defensive situation for the Nationals.
So if I told you there is a guy in free agency who played in the World Baseball Classic, okay, granted, not the same, but we saw some really stellar play early on in the year, who went 8 for 31 in 7 games, it's a 3.03 average, and he plays center field. He has experience in center field, has rings playing in center field. What would you think about the Nationals signing that guy? And do you know who that guy might be?
Well, there's a couple of free agents left over from the World Baseball Classic who have rings, but if I had to guess, I think you're probably talking about Angel Pagan.
Yes, and I know, here we go, a homer alert, but no, seriously, this is a guy who I think both you and I were highly surprised that he didn't have a home yet. I don't know what his asking price has been, but you don't want to. I really don't think you want to move Trey Turner to center. I don't think Bryce Harper obviously doesn't want to move. I think that could be the one cog that kind of starts to push him out of D.C. And Pagan might be a piece who you can get for a veteran contract. He's going to come to a team that has World Series aspirations, has the possibility. It could be a fit depending on what all the dynamics are in the clubhouse and also financially for the Nats.
Well, I can say this from everything I've heard, obviously as a Giants fan, hearing what goes on with them. He's a good clubhouse guy, and let's not forget that he's pretty flexible. He can play center field. Center field was where he was for 2 of those 3 Giants championships. But remember, he played left field in 2014, 15, and 16 for the Giants, and did pretty darn well out there in left field. So he's flexible to either side of center. And I think that's probably a good idea if they don't have a guy to come up and keep Trey Turner in the infield, which I think defensively is where Trey Turner needs to be.
And Pagan's a similar player. Now, granted, he did say that he is planning – he told Yamara Muniz Perez of El Vocero that he is planning to sit out the 2017 season, spend time with his family, but he doesn't want to officially retire. But you've got a guy who last year hit 277 – a 331 on base and a 418 slugging, 12 dingers, 15 snags on the base path. It's a similar style of play. He's going to be quick on his feet. He's going to have good range in the outfield. He's not going to be a guy who's going to put up those power numbers, but you have those guys already in that Nationals lineup. So to me, if it was there, it makes sense, especially if you can get him for a 1 or a 2 year deal. Not a ton. I don't think he wants to come in there as a, just kind of a one and done thing. He's probably going to want 2, I would think. But I mean, knees are never, a for sure thing. And you're looking at 6 to 9 months plus, he has to get through. Speaking of Adam Eaton, has to get through spring training, and there could be a recurrence of an issue. Having an Angel Pagan on that roster could be nice to have.
So having an Angel Pagan would be great because he's a veteran presence, right? Anytime you can get a veteran presence in the clubhouse, it's a good thing. However, another way that the Nationals might want to go, if they have somebody ready, if they have somebody available, is to do what the Giants and the Dodgers have done here in the last few weeks, and that's yank somebody up from AAA who might be able to make an impact on the big league club. And both the Giants and the Dodgers have done that in the last week, last 8 or so days. And both of the players that have been pulled up have had that sort of impact. Cody Bellinger, who is an outfielder, got pulled up to play in the outfield by the Dodgers, has played really well, especially in the at the plate. He's hitting .294 with the Dodgers right now. He hit 2 dingers in their game yesterday, and basically he's raking. I mean, he's slugging .647 at this point. Now, granted, it's a small sample size of 5 games, 20 at bats, but there's a lot to be said for a guy who comes up into the major leagues. By the way, for the first time, has not seen the bigs yet besides this appearance, and hits that well. He hasn't had any issues in the
Now, to be fair, I don't know if I just saw this, so I'm going to take a wild guess. You probably haven't. News is coming down through multiple news outlets here, CBS Sports, DodgerBlue.com, that a very likely possibility that Bellinger is going to be sent back down to Oklahoma City in AAA. Jock Peterson, Logan Forsythe, quite a few guys are going to come back from the disabled list, so not going to be a spot for him. But, man, he made himself a case for an invite to spring training and definitely a call-up later in the year, especially into that late run and maybe into the postseason roster for the Dodgers.
Absolutely, and he's done really well in the outfield. He's a first baseman also. He's had most of the problems that he has in the field, he's had at first base, but he's been really strong in the outfield, recorded 14 outs for them, and has done a fantastic job, I think. And speaking of defensive players who've come up and done a fantastic job, this kid Christian Arroyo, and I know you're going to say homer alert, but this kid Christian Arroyo, he comes up because of the just glut of injuries on the San Francisco Giants, right? You got 2 outfielders go down to collarbones within a week of each other. We got to put Brandon Belt out in left field. We got to figure out a way to fill out the field. Denard Span's down. We got to figure out how to get Gorky Hernandez out in center. And that puts Nunez out in right, which takes away our third baseman, right? No third base. What are we going to do? Now Brandon Well,
Geyer was traded, if that's what you're talking about.
No. Brandon Crawford is also on the 10-day DL for a groin. So they bring this kid up, also his first look at the bigs. He's not hitting quite as well as Cody Bellinger, but this Christian Arroyo kid also has 2 dingers. He's got a handful of at-bats more than Bellinger does. In fact, he's got 4 more plate appearances than Bellinger does in a single game more. He's hitting .208, but he's got 2 home runs, 4 RBI. But what's really impressive to me is the defensive skill that he's shown, especially playing at the hot corner and then moving from the hot corner to shortstop and playing very well there.
And I do want to kind of, at least give everybody kind of an idea here. Arroyo's hitting .208 on base, so everything that he has done to get on base has been via the bat. Struck out 7 times, so obviously can do better on the discipline side, and he's definitely got a team that is ripe to help him. Bellinger, here's the one that impresses me, a .294 average. Obviously clubbed those 2 dingers yesterday, his first 2 in one game, and a comeback against the Phillies at Chavez Ravine. But he's hitting right now .294, a .400 on base, slugging .647. Granted, again, a very, very, very small sample size, but in 5 games and 20 plate appearances, he's got over a 1.047 to be exact OPS. But I kind of know where you're going, and you told me about Arroyo, and I was impressed. Again, I don't see him as much as you do, but I kind of get a feeling that, and we discussed this obviously pre-show, because I brought up Bellinger because I had seen some stuff on him, and I know obviously with school that, if you manage to catch a Giants game, it's lucky. You and I don't get a chance to talk a lot of baseball because you've been so busy, so it's kind of been just grabbing what we can, and then obviously, we kind of work it from there.
Right.
But, I mean, to be fair, and I know where you're going with this toward your defender of the week, as we talked about last week, guys. And again, you can find all of our stuff on our Facebook page, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham, and of course at OO Left Field on Twitter, as we discussed last week. Could 2 foolish decisions end up costing two teams their seasons. And for those of you laughing at, obviously, that we had some grammatical and punctuation things. We get it. We're taking care of that. So thank you all for your comments or trolling if it was. But I've got a pretty strong feeling here by what you told me that Christian Arroyo is who is going to end up being your defender of the week. And out of the two, the entire point of this segment is because it's defense, not just with the bat. And I can't disagree with you with Arroyo being the defender of the week because of one particular thing, and it's where Arroyo has played on the field throughout his time up in the big leagues thus far this year.
Right. He's got 36 innings at third base. He's got 20 innings at shortstop. That's 56 big league innings in two of the most difficult defensive positions to play. He's still at 1,000 fielding percentage, has no errors, and he's got 21 total chances, defensive chances, with 4 total putouts and 17 total assists for outs and a double play to his credit. So he's playing
like you said, the most impressive is going to be that perfect fielding percentage to me, especially that young on a club that big that is struggling early on. It's impressive. It really is.
And so, yeah, he's going to take home the hardware this week for our defensive player, our defender of the week, if you will. Not always going to be a backstop like we said last week. It won't always be a catcher, but we're probably going to err towards catchers for the most part. But he's definitely earned, in my opinion, that hardware just because of his stellar play at two of the most difficult positions to play in the big leagues.
Couldn't agree more. And again, we'll sound the homer alert maybe later on in the day, but I couldn't agree more. I think that for being as young as he is, you got to appreciate that. And granted, guys, there may be certain times where we get guys who have been maybe struggling with the bat, but end up, still bringing home the hardware. And I think a pitcher we could have looked at was the pitcher, I believe, for the A's who had the unassisted double play as a pitcher. Just some craziness. But just didn't quite make the cut there. But still a pretty good good
your
laugh
average
at,
one unassisted double play.
Yeah, see it all the time. But again, guys, make sure to check out all of our previous stuff. Again, everything with our former guests, as far as that's Adnan Virk, Hunter Wendelstadt, Jerry Davis, Jason Klein, Chip Carey, just to name a few. Also, we had Aubrey Huff on before. You can find that at OO Left Field on Twitter and Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. Be sure to stop by and like the Out of Left Field Baseball community page on Facebook. It's a fun place to hang out, kind of talk a little bit, have some fun with baseball, see some stuff, enjoy people that aren't going to, get on you for everything. And, all in all, just we enjoy you on social media.
And keep in mind, guys, that everything that we do here every week is brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network, who brought us in, and now by MLB Mayhem as well, who has a lot of great articles. Go ahead and look them up. You can find them at Grueling Truth on Twitter or thegruelingtruth.net on the internet, and MLB Mayhem also on Facebook and Twitter.
So as we move on, and again, thank you to those guys, as always, for sticking with us, sticking behind us, and thank you guys as well. Now we kind of get into, I guess, kind of where things get kind of dicey. And we started off in the National League East. We moved over to the NL West. This is pretty much going to be more or less a National League day, although we do plan on bringing up the AL East, especially somebody in particular here in just a few minutes. But, man, all of a sudden, the team who we really thought was really going to be, I thought was going to kind of be a favorite for the National League East title is, I don't want to call them a dumpster fire, but they are in absolute and utter free fall right now. That is the New York Mets.
It's a dumpster fire. No, okay. It's an absolute.
All right.
It is a good old New York dumpster fire, sir.
So that is Chris Murray's hot take. If I had the rim shot sound effect, we would play it, but
extremely hot.
It really started. I mean, okay. So Noah Syndergaard, we have discussed far too often on this show this early in the year for negative things. Blisters, funky fingernails, everything seems to be pulling him out of a game early. No real idea why, but everything seems to kind of be happening.
You know, the sad thing is that it's not just Noah Syndergaard, man. Every single time I Google a Mets player, I find a picture of someone being helped off the field. It's Noah Syndergaard. It's Giannis Cespedes.
Right. So Syndergaard was scratched from his start and was sent to see. Now, this is the one I didn't know. Was sent to see a specialist due to tightness in his right bicep muscle. Okay. That pushed Matt Harvey to the mound for Thursday's game, which we'll get into that brouhaha here in a second. But then it came out that Mets GM Sandy Alderson said earlier today that while it's unusual that Noah Syndergaard refused an MRI on Friday. He said, I can't strap him down and throw him in the tube. But Syndergaard said, I think I know my body best. I'm pretty in tune with my body. That's exactly why I refuse to take the MRI. Now, I don't want to make a big deal, but it worries me when you have a guy who has been having different issues, and granted, most of them have been just finger things, and MRI can't help with that, but it just surprises me. Why would having an MRI bother you so much that you wouldn't want to go do it? And it kind of brings me back to shades of Matt Harvey last year, who was having physical discomfort and then didn't say anything until he had to be helped off. And like, oh, by the way, I couldn't feel a baseball. My fingers were numb, so surprise. Didn't hit anybody, but hey, high five.
This is typical Asgardian hubris, right? I mean, Thor is never going to admit that he needs help or that he's hurt, right? He's going to go out there, he's going to skip the MRI, he's going to throw his arm out and come out of the game. I mean, this is what Thor does.
So do you believe that Sandy Alderson should have stripped Thor's armor and cast him out of Asgard and thrown the hammer with him, and whoever ends up being worthy of the power of Thor shall then yield the hammer?
That's right. I think that Noah Syndergaard has lost any right that he had to bear Mjolnir, and he needs to get into the MRI machine and figure out what's wrong with his body, because he did come out today. And him coming out is a large part of the reason why they were routed. And
for the record, I am sorry to everybody for the quick geek out right there. If you aren't a Marvel fan, the hell is wrong with you?
Marvel.
And if you are a Marvel fan, well, we hope you appreciated that quick moment. So,
or that's actual Norse mythology and whatever.
Same thing. Marvel, Norse, we're a fun show. So back to all this. Okay, so Syndergaard comes out. They're going to scratch him from a start. So Matt Harvey is going to pitch on Thursday.
Right. And so what does he do? He does the most obvious thing. Right.
He works out.
He works out on Wednesday. Heavy. He works out heavy on Wednesday, right? And then when he has a horrible start, he says he felt a little tightness, right? And obviously he felt a little tight because he worked out heavy on Wednesday. And then he comes out and says, things were just, this is a quote, things were just pretty tight mechanically. Overall, it felt tight on the mound, and it couldn't get loose through the start, just kind of a rough day. But why was it a rough day? He said, I wasn't ready to pitch on Thursday. Apparently, he didn't know until 10 a.m. that he was getting the 1:10 p.m. start that day.
Now, obviously, a good manager in Terry Collins comes to his players' defense and says 2 times in a row we asked him to step up and pitch when he was unexpected to. It's hard to do at this level as these guys have routines that are important to them. And then Harvey wanted to say, it happened before once. I have to be ready for it to happen again. Having those workouts I did yesterday and the throwing I did yesterday, I wasn't prepared. It's our job to be ready at any time. So, granted those guys for at least sticking through it, but I never expect to hear a player say, I wasn't ready to go. Especially if Syndergaard is scratched and he's scratched. And my question to you was, when did the scratch happen? Was he mid-workout? It does not appear at any stretch that he was, that he shouldn't have been made aware. Now, was there a breakdown in communication from Terry Collins to Matt Harvey? Did they scratch him late? I don't know, but it appears that someone didn't tell somebody something, and somebody wasn't ready to do something on the day they had to do something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was a convoluted mess that led to a pretty clear defeat for the Mets on that Thursday, and kind of just has been building up to, like you said, what happened today. Speaking of today, Anthony Rendon went off. So it kind of, I mean, you blew my mind with that stat with him.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus in this story or anything, but Terry Collins did say that, quote, when I talked to Matt Thursday morning and asked if he could pitch, he said, absolutely, it's my day to pitch anyway. So, that's how he goes on to say, now that being said, that's how big leaguers are supposed to talk. You can assume that it affected him, but assumptions are what they are. You can make them, but he's the only one who can answer that. But he comes in and he tells Collins, yeah, no, I'm ready to go, knowing he worked out hard the day before. It's incumbent upon him to, A, know that Syndergaard is scratched and he might get that call, and B, to be honest, which is now this is 2 years in a row we're having the same situation with Matt Harvey where he's not being honest with his management and telling them what's going on with him. He should have been honest and be like, no, man, can DeGrom go or can somebody else go because I worked out hard yesterday. I'm ready for tomorrow. Right?
Right.
And
because it does. It puts him in a situation where, A, he clearly had no control. He was erratic. It puts other guys in a dangerous situation we've discussed before. So, all in all, it was just a bad look, which, again, it looks bad on both sides, but the concern, as all, kind of for me keeps building, is that either Matt Harvey doesn't have a feel for his body or just isn't willing. Being a competitor is great, but you have to be willing, as you said, to know the limits of when you being a competitor and being out there is going to be more harmful to your ball club than you not being out there. And a key piece like that is, and I'll say it is, Madison Bumgarner. He knows we can go. He's willing to be a workhorse day in, day out. We saw it happen in 2014. We always go back to that, but it's there. And then that led us back to today, where Noah Syndergaard, again, left early. Now this appears to be a lat strain. This could actually end up being a DL stint for Noah Syndergaard, and that led to instead of a possible 3-game sweep of the Nationals, which would have been huge for a ball club who has been decimated with injuries. And Cespedes, their pitching, David Wright still. I mean, we've talked about the Mets like crazy. Instead, they end up giving up 23 hits, 7 home runs, and a 23-5 baseman Anthony Rendon went ahead and, as you would say, he done had himself a game.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Anthony Rendon made a little bit of history today. He became the first player since at least 1913, right? And the 4th player in the modern era since 1900 to go 6 for 6 with 3 home runs in a single game. Let's say some names here so we know the kind of company he's keeping. The other players to have done so are Ty Cobb, Edgardo Alfonso, and Sean Green. Those are 3 names that anybody who's been paying attention to baseball for most of their lives has heard. That is good company to keep.
Sean Green was a beast back in the late 90s for the Dodgers. I mean, he was a big piece in Dodger blue. A guy, big lefty. Always liked watching him play.
And he actually did it in 2002.
Okay.
But we're talking about a guy who really had a heck of a game. And the thing that sets him apart from the other 3 is that he adds to that, to the 6 for 6 and the 3 homers. He has 10 ribbies, right? And that's really what sets him apart and sends you back to that historical sort of encompassing in play today. In fact,
right.
The last guy to even get close to it was Walker Cooper in 1949. He went 6 for 7 with 3 home runs and 10 ribbies for the Reds against the Chicago Cubs. And before that, you're heading back out of the modern era to find a guy who's done something like this. So good on Anthony Rendon, but it comes on a day when Noah Syndergaard goes down, and obviously he started this against Noah Syndergaard. He had Noah Syndergaard's number early, so it's good to see him get that, but it's really hard to watch the Mets get dinged up like that, especially when the guy who might be able to counter this offensively, Giannis Cespedes, is down on the 10-day DL with a hamstring. Again.
Right. And you and I both know that 10-day DL stint a lot of times end up just being an extended 10 days plus a little bit more 10 days. And it is. I mean, it's rough on them, a team that really had, that was thought to really be the ones who probably were going to win the NL East, now sit at the bottom of the NL East alongside the Atlanta Braves, who, they've had moments of brilliance. Matt Kemp, shades of old, had himself a monster power night last night. But something that Joe Rivera, a writer for the Sporting News, put in an article, and it made me laugh because you and I had talked about this and mentioned this really, and I hadn't seen this article. But he said the Mets blew their chance to take back New York from the Yankees. And I think that may be accurate. The Yankees are always going to kind of be that team that everybody, if you are a lover of them, you're always going to stand by them. But this was a chance for the Mets to, after multiple seasons making the postseason, you're seeing those three arms. We haven't had a big three like that in a while. Even in San Francisco, the big three hasn't been this dynamic. Of course, being on the West Coast also hurts that when the majority of your games are played, at 10 o'clock Eastern time. But the Mets go to the World Series in 2015. Obviously, they fall to the Kansas City Royals. And all of a sudden, a lot of Mets fans in that moment were probably some bandwagon fans who may not have made the pledge to either side and are kind of following the team that's hot right now. And we've all been there. The way that they're looking, this was kind of like the Clippers' chance to take L.A. away from the Lakers, which they have probably had a chance to do. I don't know who won the Game 7 today, but the Yankees I think are still probably the main team in New York, and there's a big reason, a very big, very tall reason as to why the Yankees are still one of the top teams. If not the top team in New York City.
The Jazz won that game, by the way.
Ooh.
Yeah,
whoa.
yeah. So here's the thing. What are the reasons, right? You can go back through history and say that 27 world titles and whatnot. Okay, Yankees, we get it. You can win championships. You could say that that's the reason why New York is the Yankees' home. But one of the reasons why the Mets aren't taking over New York from the Yankees this season is a guy who we talked about pretty extensively last season, and not a lot of the things that we had to say about him were good. And that guy is Aaron Judge, who apparently went and saw a guru in the offseason. And everything that he needed, a guru, and everything that he needed to do to be successful has somehow just clicked into place for this kid. He's not swinging from the heels anymore. He's not striking out every time he gets up to bat anymore. And he is crushing the baseball. And when I say crushing the baseball, he broke StatCast.
So let's go ahead and kind of put this into perspective here. Now, granted, his on-base percentage at the end of last year was almost 100 points higher, just over, I believe, just over 90, or just under 90 points higher than his batting average. Problem there is his on-base was 263, and his batting average to end last year was 179. Now, I want to put this in perspective. I'm going to give you year to year, okay? And this is kind of what gets me really, and I've been telling you, I think Judge has turned a corner, and you weren't a believer until you finally saw the numbers, and I think now you're seeing it as of this moment, okay, he has 84 plate appearances in 21 games. Last year he had 95 total plate appearances. All right, he is 9 at-bats shy in 2017, of what he finished with last year. Okay, he's already scored 12. What's that about?
11.
Okay, yeah, 11. Same thing.
95 minus 84 is 11.
Yeah, I don't do. Math isn't my thing. I just sit here and talk, and I don't. I barely do that right. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's been a long day at work, by the way. I know I haven't been drinking. So
yeah,
he already has now 10 plus 12 is 22, right?
Yes.
Okay, 12 more runs scored this year than last year. Okay, he has already had 7 more hits, same number of doubles, which is 2, 1 triple. He's got 10 dingers. He had 10 dingers in the month of April. The third rookie to do that in the last 4 seasons. Obviously, Trevor Story was last year, and I can't recall. I believe it was Jose Abreu, but I may be wrong. I have to double check on that to double check that. Let me see. But I mean, his numbers are just. It's really, yes, it was Jose Abreu. His numbers are sick. Okay, so he's got double the ribbies, 20 ribbies compared to 10 last year. He's already stolen a base. He's already walked. He's walked 10 times and struck out 22. Last year he walked 9 times and struck out 42.
Right.
He is seeing the ball well. His patience is there. It's exactly what we thought needed to happen for him to be successful. And he's actually doing it, and it's being done consistently, and I am insanely impressed by Aaron Judge.
I am. I'm insanely impressed by Aaron Judge. And that last stat, right, that walkout to strike ratio is really where he's come a long way. Because we're talking about a kid.
Walkout to strike ratio? See, you do the math, I do the talking, because I don't know what a walkout is. A walkout to strike ratio.
Strikeout to walk ratio is really where he's come a long way. And it's really probably his most impressive improvement, although that 10 dingers in April is pretty impressive.
I mean, when you're slugging 767, there's a little, you can tip your cap to that once or twice.
His OPS is almost double what it was last season. His OPS last season, 608. He's now at 1.160. It's almost exactly double what he was last season. And so's his batting average, right? He hit 179 in 84 at-bats last season. He's hitting 301 right now. And 301 with a 393 on base. This is impressive numbers from this kid. If he can keep this kind of performance up, obviously he's not going to keep this exact performance up. I don't expect him to spend every single month hitting 10 home runs and going 300 in the box. But I do expect by the end of the season for this kid to have 30 or 35 dingers, probably around a 300 average, and I'm pretty sure that OPS is probably going to stick right there around 900, which is going to be really impressive as a turnaround for this kid. And if he can keep seeing the ball the way he's seeing it, if he can keep avoiding striking out as much as he has been, then the Yankees might get, a lot of longevity out of this kid.
I certainly. I mean, and the beauty of this is, and I don't know, I don't think there's a correlation here, but Gary Sanchez isn't playing. If he's just came back. So now when you're thinking, man, the one guy who we thought was going to kind of be that young power bat for us, is he going to transition over nice from last season to this season? He's hurt. And then Aaron Judge, who, everyone kept saying he needs to be the everyday right fielder, and I disagreed vehemently. Like, there's no reason. The kid's going to be a strikeout machine. He wasn't good last year. He had an okay spring. That's about it. And I have been, happy to be wrong. And like I said, the thing to me is if he can keep this 2-to-1 ratio, it's really, 2 strikeouts to every 1 walk, which I'm fine with if you're, he's a free swinger, but he's hitting the baseball and he's at least taking his time and actually seeing the ball. I don't know what changed. I would love to talk to him and find out, but something good happened.
So I just got probably the best news you could get in this situation.
You're going to see a guru?
No.
Okay.
The Yankees now have a modicum of respect from me based on what I just read.
I want you to
Turns
understand that you are no longer the favorite son. I have regained the title of favorite son in my own house.
I think your dad'll appreciate this a little bit too. Now, every time Aaron Judge hits a home run in Yankee Stadium, they use a giant graphic of a gavel striking on the jumbotron, and then play the sound effect from Law and Order.
Nice.
This is the greatest thing ever. It's the greatest thing ever.
See, all I want is for Michael Kay to go, and the verdict is in, home run. Like, I want something like that. That is my idea of a great call.
Also,
now, that may be why I don't have a play-by-play career, but hey.
I want to point out again, like I did with like I did with Anthony Rendon, the kind of company that Gary Sanchez is keeping with this start that he's had, especially with these 10 home runs in the first 22 games of the season. This is the company that he keeps. A-Rod, Nettles,
great company,
Mantle, Yogi, and Ruth. That's it.
When there are guys who you're in company with, who all you need to know is just their last name, first name. Hey, Mickey. Oh, Yogi. Oh, that guy. Yeah, that's impressive. And again, there's no guarantee this is going to translate. I hope for his sake it does. I'm sorry for my dad's sake if it does, but hey, that's baseball. That's the beauty of it. But he has been really, really impressive, and I really hope for him that it continues. So, we'll see what happens. Now, here's something else that you and I have been talking about, and it really surprised me. There are we knew the Marlins were probably going to sell.
Right
now, it looks like it doesn't. We don't know who it's going to be yet. There are still, we've heard handshake agreement, looking at a $1.3 billion sale price. But former Florida Governor Jeb Bush and another Yankee great, Derek Jeter, are talking about getting involved to make a majority ownership buy of the Marlins. Now, there is talk that Jeb Bush would be the control person if he and Jeter complete the acquisition, but they wouldn't be funding the majority, is how it's sounding. A source said that Bush and Jeter will be writing a check for only a fraction of the price. They're expected to invest no more than a combined $200 million. Think about this. Giancarlo Stanton's deal is worth more than the amount that Jeb Bush and Derek Jeter may be willing to invest to purchase this team.
Yeah, and I think really the incredible thing that's going to go on here is that there's still kind of a bidding war going on down there. There are some other interested parties. We've talked about a possible sale of the Marlins once this year already, but what's incredible to me is that these guys are going to get a controlling interest in this team for that $200 million investment. And so obviously that means there are going to be a lot of other parties involved. I would be surprised, to be honest with you, if we don't see, should this purchase happen, I would be surprised if we don't see Alex Rodriguez enter into some sort of everyday role with that team, be it in the front office or in the general manager type position, president type position. I would be surprised if that doesn't happen. I realize that he and Jeter had some strife in their friendship on the field together when they played for the Yankees, but I mean, that's A-Rod City, right?
Is one lying GM in the National League in San Diego not enough? Now you want to have two lying GMs in the National League?
Well, at least they can trade amongst each other, right?
They did. That's how that whole thing got started in San Diego.
Well, turnabout is fair play. But
I mean, obviously, there is not enough really in here yet to get too deep into the conversation. The one thing that I will say that kind of makes you raise an eyebrow is if they're investing that small amount of money, big picture, granted to you and me, I mean, we could live like kings.
Yeah.
But, when you're investing less than, 20% of the asking price, I think, again, math isn't my strong suit, but how is a group like that going to be able to actually fund a decent-sized payroll to make that team competitive? That is something that I would say as a fan would have the hairs in the back of my neck standing up just a little bit.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to watch, right? I mean, obviously there are going to be a lot of involved parties in this purchase. There are going to be a lot of guys putting in probably $10, $20, $30 million at a time to buy this team. They're still going to have to get to that $1.3 billion number to make the purchase. And then there's going to have to be some sort of solvency above that, right? They're going to have to be able to field a team. They're going to have to be able to pay for all these things. But remember, a lot of that money is going to come from income. I mean, it's going to be brought in by the team itself, by the stadium, and by people coming to baseball games. If they can get people at the ballpark, in the seats, watching these baseball games, make it exciting again, then I don't see how they're going to have a problem funding this baseball team. It's the interim, right? It's getting from here to there that's going to be the issue, I think. And to be honest, if you have what's probably going to end up being 20-plus people purchasing this ball club, and you're going to make Jeb Bush the president of that sort of union, right, which is the only union he'll ever be the president of, if you're going to make Jeb Bush
We don't need to go political here, Chris Furry. Baseball show. This is a baseball show, folks. Welcome to the baseball show out of left field. If you want any hate mail, Chris_OOLF out of left field with Chris and Graham on Facebook and at OO left field on Twitter. Care of Chris Furry.
But if you're going to make him the president of this union, you got to worry about the baseball experience that comes with that, right? If you're going to put Jeb Bush in charge, how much baseball experience does Jeb Bush have? None, basically, right? So
make it a family affair.
He does have quite a bit of experience as a leader. Obviously, as the governor of Florida, he has a lot of experience as a businessman. So obviously, those things are going to help. But I'd like to see somebody step into a day-to-day role, either Jeter or A-Rod or somebody close to them in a day-to-day role that's going to be able to run baseball team as a baseball team. I think that's really going to be the key. And again, if you're going to have 20 or 30 people buy a team, are they obstructing another group of buyers, maybe a smaller group of buyers with a better baseball portfolio behind them from purchasing a team like this? And, you got to really look at obstruction in that light.
You do. And the last thing I'll say on that before we get into another type of obstruction that we dealt with this week as we get ready to go behind the mask is I think the one good thing is if you have a former player in an ownership capacity who understood and understands the game the way that Jeter does and handled himself with the class that he did throughout his career, I think it definitely makes a GM maybe a little bit more interested in going to a team like that with new ownership because there's that belief that you're going to end up getting to be, you're going to end up being, a part of that ownership group. I'm not sure why you're flashing my wedding save the date at the camera, but yes, I was there for those pictures. I looked devilishly handsome, to say so myself, which I am the only one saying that, so I guess I did say so myself. Well, thank you for that.
Morgan and the dog look good anyway.
They do. They do. The dog was just chipper. She was actually was great during that. So back to obstruction, as you were trying to obstruct my little finishing off there of our last topic. So as we get ready to go behind the mask, and again, guys, reminder, we are brought to you by the Grueling Truth Network, where legends speak. Find them online on Twitter at Grueling Truth, and of course, the Grueling Truth on Facebook and thegruelingtruth.net. Also being brought to you by MLB Mayhem at MLB Mayhem on Twitter. So something a little bit different this week, and an umpire that is notorious, to say the least, Angel Hernandez. I'm not a guy here to bash umpires. Not a guy that I'm a fan of. He's very thin-skinned, very similar to another guy, kind of C.B. Buckner, who again thoughts to C.B. Buckner, regardless of what you think of him as an umpire, took a kill shot right to the chin on his hockey-style mask, was knocked out. It looked worse than what happened to Dale Scott. I don't know if Chris, did you see the video when I sent it to you when CB got hit? I mean, he went down. It looked like he was struggling to stay conscious. I mean, he really buckled on that. And he's a guy who's in the scissors, so it's pretty rough. But it was a straight, hard shot to the chin.
His knees buckled a couple of times. He almost went down, and then he finally did end up on his backside, sitting up. Hopefully he's fine. Obviously, that's a hard shot to take. And frighteningly enough, that he was wearing, right, the other mask that we have said before is a pretty darn good mask to wear if you're going to take a shot to the face. Unfortunately, not the sort of protection that, again, we saw in other umpires who are wearing the Force 3 mask.
Right. It hit him right in that chin.
And a pretty decent shot. Yep,
right in the chin. Had nowhere to go but into the cranium. So hopefully, again, thoughts to C.B. Buckner. Back to the obstruction part, though. So a couple of days ago, and you can find this, actually, guys, if you go onto Facebook, and again, not everyone gets, overly concerned with this, or you can always YouTube it. This was during Saturday's game, so yesterday's game, the Mets Nationals. So Jason Worth was attempting to steal second, throw down, obviously, tried to retire him, gets away from a dribble Cabrera. Now, as the ball gets away and Worth is getting up from his head-first slide, he's attempting to advance to third base, okay? And doing so, he collided with Miguel Cabrera. Now, obstruction gets called. This is the same kind of obstruction, okay, that we would have seen in the World Series a couple of years ago. Okay, there are two types, right? We have obstruction 1 and obstruction type 2. Type 1 is basically when a play is being made on the runner when he's obstructed, kind of like getting in a rundown sort of thing. Okay, in this case, the ball's gone. He's just getting up and trying to go to third. So the rule states that if no play is being made on the obstructed runner, the play shall proceed until no further action is possible. The umpire shall then call time and impose such penalties, if any, as in his judgment will nullify the act of obstruction. Okay? The comment being, when the ball is not dead on obstruction and an obstructed runner advances beyond the base, which, in the umpire's judgment, he would have been awarded because of being obstructed, he does so at his own peril and may be tagged out. It's a judgment call. Okay? So what does all that mean? All right? It's kind of a convoluted sense of the rule, and most rule books are. Basically, it means this, guys. Okay? Because he slid head first into second, when he attempted to go to third, the ball was gone. They were not attempting to make a play on Jason Worth. So because he gets up and tries for third and was thrown out by a country mile, this type 2 obstruction is where the penalties, if any, comes in. Okay? In the judgment of Angel Hernandez, and I believe that it was the proper call. Everything that you saw, no one got ejected out of it. Everything seemed pretty clear that Jason Worth had no business trying to go to third. He's playing this as a high school type rule where obstruction is an automatic one-base award. It is not always an automatic one-base award. Okay? So in this case, because it wasn't being made on him, he does not have safe passage to third. Now, had he oversight and tried to get back into second and been tagged out, sure. At that point, he's retreating back to the base. The obstruction kind of got him off kilter, got him slower to retreat. They would have kept him at second. Because he made the choice to attempt to advance to third at his own risk, the obstruction became nullified as he was tagged out, and the out stood. So, again, seen it before. Obstruction, for those of you who don't know, because everyone hears obstruction and interference, everyone thinks it's interference. Obstruction is the act of a fielder who does not have possession of the ball and is not on the act of fielding the ball impedes the progress of the runner. So, again, it was determined that, again, the out call stood. He would have been thrown out at third base if the obstruction had occurred or if it had not occurred. The ball got maybe, 5 or 6 feet into the outfield, just off the grass. There was no way he was going to be safe. Why did I compare this to the World Series? Well, when Alan Craig is attempting to get home, I believe it was Alan Craig, is attempting to get home, and again, because Middlebrooks was the fielder at the time, the ball got all the way out to the far left field corner. The play ended up being so close on him, it was within probably a second or so of the ball getting there in the tag. It is easily judged by the umpires that obstruction, him tripping over a fielder who is laying in the base path, clearly caused him to be put out instead of being safe, attaining home on his own before the throw would have gotten there. So a very similar type of rule, or actually really the same rule, the same enforcement, but in the case of the World Series, they plated the run. In this case, the runner ended up being out at third because he would not have attained third base had the obstruction not occurred. So that's behind the mask for you. A little something different behind, for umpires, something you might see. So if you saw that game and wondered what was going on, that's the reason why it was explained as it was. Had there been, had the ball been there, had he been obstructed, type 1 would have been a different issue.
Well, to be honest, that's the first in-depth explanation for the obstruction rule that I've ever gotten. I've never been personally involved in an obstruction play. Plenty of interference plays, never an obstruction play. They're a little bit rarer, I think, than some other sort of rare calls.
Yep.
So
I had one last year, and I'll give you something very similar, almost exact same idea. So here's kind of my here's the story time. So runner on first, sliding feet first, so a heads up slide into second. Ball got airmailed over the shortstop's head into center field. The runner kind of did a pop-up slide, saw the ball was going to be gone. As soon as he popped up, the fielder had touched the ground, and the runner made contact with him twice. So I called obstruction. We ended up putting the runner back or over to third because he was attempting to third. And National Federation rules in high school is an automatic one base award minimum. So in this case, he gets third automatically. And the head coach wanted to know why. Well, my explanation was he didn't quite like it at first, but he understood it at the end. Was that because the fielder had come down, he had finished his act of fielding the ball, similar to what we saw in the World Series, where yes, he all you can do is disappear, and that sounds like the worst thing to tell somebody. What can I do? Disappear is the answer. So, in my judgment, and again, a judgment call. That's the beauty of umpiring. Sometimes the worst part of umpiring for people is that had the fielder still been in the air when the contact occurred. So let's say the runner pops up and runs into the fielder while he's still in the air. To me, at that point, the fielder would still have been in the act of fielding the ball. He hadn't come back down to terra firma, if you will. So the obstruction was called only because he had regained his footing on the ground and didn't have the ball. Had it not, then we would have had nothing, or could have had an interference had the runner popped up with the ball coming in. So just another idea kind of how obstruction works. It's something you don't see very often, but it will happen. You'll see interference more often than not, normally interference on the batter, the catcher throwing down to second base, which we'll get into here at a later time on Behind the Mask. But, there you go, Chris, something a little bit different to learn, and a nice, easy end to a show that was really full of craziness at every turn. It really has been surprising to me just how much of an injury-riddled season it has been, and I'm certainly hoping that next week that is not what leads the show, is another injury or multiple injuries for any team or players.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's been another great show. We love coming out here and doing this with you guys every week, and we really appreciate you guys coming back and listening to us every week. We'll do everything we can to take some autonomy on and title our own shows so we don't have any grammar, punctuation, syntax, or semantics issues with titles going forward. Thank you to everybody, again, who pointed them out.
Trolled us. Just say it. They trolled us. It's okay.
So
I understand.
Viciously, to be honest. By the way, those were punctuation errors, not grammar errors. Sorry to point that out to you. That's also semantics. But
and there's the grammar
again,
Nazi. Here we go.
Again, we had another great week. It's been another great show. We want to, of course, thank the Grueling Truth Network and MLB Mayhem for bringing us to you, just like they do every week. Stay tuned to us, and make sure that you listen next week when we're going to have another group of stories straight out of left field.
Christian Arroyo, congrats, Defender of the Week.